Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Muriel Strode. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your hostess, Shamisa Ali. Good evening to everyone joining us on Facebook and YouTube. I hope everyone had a productive week so far. Tonight the we will discuss state of house lot allocation and new housing development. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, Guyana, and the Caribbean. Funding support is by well-known philanthropist Dave Narayan from Dave West Indian Imports. Joining me tonight, please welcome our host, uh, Dr. Tara, and also joining me
Professor Budu.
will be Professor Budu. Welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight, Dr. Tara?
Fine, thank you. And you?
I am doing very well. Good to see you. And Dr. Professor Budu, welcome. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much and doing very well.
Pleasure to have both of you here this evening. We will now move on to our guest of the evening. She is the minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water. She was appointed to the position by President Mohammed Irfan Ali on the 6th of August 2020. She is a dynamic, passionate, and devoted minister. She comes from a private sector background and has been in construction and real estate. Minister Rodriguez has a Bachelor of Law from the University of Guyana and has a Master's of Business in Business Administration from the University of Bedfordshire. Making a tangible difference and transforming the lives of her Guyanese brothers and sisters remain high on her agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Minister Susan M. Rodriguez. Welcome. It's a
Hello,
pleasure to
thank
have you
you
here
very
this evening.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening to everyone on the panel, and good evening to everyone who is watching and listening.
Thank you. Dr. Tara?
Good evening, Minister. I know I've communicated with you on a few occasions before, but it's the first time I'm meeting you virtually. I hope one day I can meet you in real person whenever I visit Guyana. But it's a pleasure to have you. I know I've spoken to many people and they're anxious to look forward to this program because they see you as one of the, as the host just said, one of the dynamic ministers of the PEP government.
I
Now, my
appreciate it.
first, to lead off this discussion, we'd like you to state what was the state of the housing situation when you took office in August 2020 and what you have done since then at a general level. And then we'll proceed to ask some additional questions and clarifications. So if you can please proceed.
Okay, sure. So I think by now everyone knows the state of decline that we found the housing sector in when we took office in August of 2020. We had a government from 2015 to 2020 who relegated the Ministry of Housing to a department, clearly demonstrating their lack of interest in promoting the housing sector and in promoting housing for ordinary Guyanese and promoting affordable housing for the Guyanese people. That was followed by no investment in infrastructure, in housing schemes, which led to a series of problems in the housing schemes and led to the decline of roads and so on. And of course, we know about the track record from 2015 to 2020, which is just over 7,000 house lot allocations during that entire 5-year period. So when we came to the ministry, Minister Kroll and I, we found that there were no plans, there were no ongoing projects the there was severe neglect in our housing schemes. All of the roads and so on were in poor condition. That is why now you see a lot of people across the housing schemes calling for their roads to be upgraded, because you've had that entire 5 years of neglect. And upgrading in the infrastructure is an ongoing process. It's hundreds and hundreds of roads that we're talking about. So it takes constant investment, every budget cycle, to ensure that we upgrade those roads as the occupancy in the housing schemes increase. So you know that we promised 50,000 house lots in our 5 years in office. And so we immediately got to work. And even though it was in the latter part of 2020, we were still able to allocate house lots by December of 2020. And by the time we completed our first year in office, by the time we got to August of 2021, we had reached our target, our first year target of 10,000 house lots. And that was no easy task, finding with the condition in which we took this sector, having to develop plans, having to put things in place in order to facilitate the allocation process, going to have an emergency budget, which we passed mere weeks after taking office, to ensure that we cater for the infrastructure investment in housing schemes. Also, in the period in which the APNU AFC were in office illegally during that 5 month period, and from January 2020 to August, up to the day that President Ali was sworn in, they made allocations. And it was, a last minute effort to reward their family and friends with house lots. And it was about 2,000 house lots, 1,987, I think, to be exact. And those people um, were not shown their house lots and so on. So all of the work that we are doing, all of the infrastructure work that we are doing, in addition to making sure that those lots are available to the allottees that we have awarded house lots to, we also had to cater for the 2,000 that they had allocated. We had to ensure that we do the infrastructure works to ensure that those persons are able to access their house lots as well. So house lot allocation, investment in our housing schemes, investment in the water sector, these are all ongoing. On the DWI side, we have crafted our 5 year strategic plan to ensure that we can provide water as well within our housing schemes, and we are making the plans and investment to reach our target of 50,000 house lots by 2025. And that, there's no cap on that. If we can make the investment and do the work to surpass that, we may even do so. But we have set a very ambitious target. You know that President Ali, who was then Minister of Housing, had a tremendous track record. And we have big shoes to fill in the housing sector. But it is a pleasure to be in this sector, to be serving in this sector. Our aim is to ensure that we stay faithful to our manifesto commitments, and you can see that and judge for yourselves across all of the sectors, not just the housing sector, but across all of the sectors. The ministers are out there in communities, meeting the people, consulting with people, and ensuring that we stay faithful to all of those commitments and promises we made in our manifesto. Because a PPPC government is the government that takes our commitments very, very seriously. Our word is our honor, and we want to ensure that when we speak, that we can that we speak reality. We don't sell false dreams or hopes to people. We don't raise people's expectations unnecessarily. And everything that we have committed to, we have planned and we have costed, and we will ensure that we have the investment and we have the manpower and we have the will to get all of these plans and programs through. so that by the time we get to 2025, we would have fulfilled every single commitment in our manifesto.
Thank you very much. Now you said during the PNC term, 5-year term, they only built 7,000 house lots, which is an average of 1,400 per year. Do you have any idea why, or this amount was so limited, why they couldn't do better? You have any
Well,
explanation for that?
when you say built, they allocated
Allocated, sorry,
they
yeah.
allocated 7,000 house lots, but a large majority of that of the people who received house lots were still it was in schemes that there was no infrastructure. So we in our first budget we ensure that we allotted funds to make the infrastructure, to do the infrastructure in those communities to make those house lots available and accessible to the beneficiaries. We did not disenfranchise anyone because at the end of the day, these are ordinary Guyanese, and we had to make sure that we make those house lots available and accessible to them. Now, in terms of why the record was so poor, I think the list is very long as to why. One of the reasons clearly is that they did not see the value of the housing sector. They so in the first place they abolished the ministry, clearly showing their lack of interest and will to do anything in the housing sector. They did not prioritize housing, even though access to affordable land is a right that every Guyanese has. There was no allocation in the budget from 2015 all the way to 2019 for housing, for capital works in the housing sector. It was only after the passage of the no confidence motion in December of 2018, and I made this point in Parliament. It was after the passage of the no confidence motion in 2018 that they went to Parliament to pass the first capital budget for housing. So there was no way that they could do any capital works housing schemes if they were not making the necessary allocations in the budget. That's how budget works. You have to, if you have plans and you have programs, you have to ensure that you have the necessary allocation in the budget to be able to execute. We can talk policy and plans and programs all day, but if we don't put the budget for it, then there's nothing that can be done. So it was only in 2019 when they started to race towards election, when they realized, well, the election is going to be imminent, that they tried to gather some steam in the housing sector. But there clearly was a neglect. I think there was another reason is a lack of competence. I don't think they ever understood the housing sector, and that is clear even today when I listen to the last minister of housing and water under the APNU AFC, who sits in Parliament now. When I listen to her sometimes, that's when I realized, well, she clearly didn't understand the housing sector. She didn't understand how to run the ministry. So all of that, it's a combination of all of these things: lack of competence, lack of the financial investment, clearly a lack of priority. Housing was not a priority for the APNU AFC administration, and that speaks to a bigger issue of their philosophy in government. They never look out for the small man. And 75% of the applicants in our system are low income applicants. Those are the small man, that is the ordinary Guyanese. Those are the people who need it the most. The low income earners, they need subsidized housing the most. So that is where our support as government has to go, to develop as much low income house lots as possible so that we can satisfy the demand in the housing sector, and so that the people who need the help, the low income earners, can get an access the subsidized housing program from the government of Guyana.
Do you think that finances, lack of finance, was one of the constraint to their housing program?
Well, lack of finance because they did not make the necessary allocations in the budget. So they went budget cycle after budget cycle without funding the Ministry of Housing or the Department of Housing as it was then under their administration.
Well, they imposed 200 new taxes and fees, which brought them an additional 70 to $90 billion in revenue.
Right.
And
They had the
one,
money.
one,
They had the
they had
money.
the money,
They
yeah.
just put it towards their own use because they found it in 2019 um, to make the necessary investment in the budget in 2019, but it was too late then. So they had the money, which they took away the $10,000 cash grant from the school children, but dietary increased by $1.6 billion, the same amount of money it would have taken them to distribute $10,000 to each school child at the time. That's just one example. So it was a matter of reprioritizing. So they did not prioritize children. They did not prioritize women. They did not prioritize low income earners. They did not prioritize people who applied for their house lots, which is housing, construction. They didn't prioritize the basic necessities, the things that would improve people's lives. They did not invest in infrastructure. They did not invest in basic services from government that would improve the lives of Guyanese at the end of their tenure. They invested in themselves, and they had a different set of priorities. They found money to raise their own salaries. So they had a different set of priorities, and quickly the Guyanese public realized the type of government that they have, and that is why they were defeated in first at the no confidence motion, and then why they were defeated on March 2nd, 2020.
Okay. The You said that your goal is to reach at least the allocation of I think you said was
50,000.
50,000 house lots. Now, from where you plan to get the land for this? From Gaisuku alone, or from government reserves, or from private?
So historically, we have received lands from Gaisuko. We've received and Guyana Lands and Survey. So and NISIL. So the majority of the lands, however, comes from Gaisuko. Most of the applications in our system come from the coastline regions, so region 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. So most of our applicants come from the coastal regions because in the hinterland, they have their own land. They have land titling there, and it's ancestral land. So, which reminds me that the National Tushao Council Conference is ongoing this week in Guyana, and that is major to be able to discuss Amerindian development with our Amerindian brothers and sisters. And the entire cabinet is there all week, making ourselves available to the Amerindian community and to all of the Tushaus who are in Georgetown for this annual conference. So. So that's taken care of, and the acquisition of land process is an ongoing one because we have competing interests in government. Of course, we have to always make land available for agriculture, and we also have to make land available for housing. So it's an ongoing process. Whenever we have allocations to make, or wherever we have to satisfy the demand, we have to ensure we constantly pursue the acquisition of lands in those areas, in those coastal regions. And by now, from 2020, when we took office, we found about 70,000 applicants, in the backlog, about 70,000 applications. And from 2020 to now, we have received 21,000 new applicants. So that is a remarkable figure. It's not it's not a daunting task for us, because I see it as confidence in the housing sector. I see it as young people, and the majority of that is young people. I see it as a vote of confidence from young people in our country, that they have faith in the housing sector, that their confidence has been restored in the housing sector. Now, when people see or hear from the Ministry of Housing, they're excited because they can see our work. They can see us, fighting every day to ensure that we make lands available, to go out there and to make allocations. And we have several programs that we are working on to make home ownership more accessible. So it's our focus is not primarily on making lands available for house lots, but in getting our people to home ownership. And that, as you know, has several benefits. The most obvious ones is the creation of wealth, um, satisfying the demand in the housing sector, um, promoting occupancy in our housing schemes, and ensuring that Guyanese have access to affordable housing, ensuring that they have their own home, that they can build a family, that they can raise children in, that they can live in a neighborhood, that they can be part of a sustainable community. That is a dream for every single human being. The first thing they want to do is to own their own home, and that is a collateral that you can take to the bank, and you can use as an investment in the future. It creates generational wealth. It creates an inheritance for you to leave for your kids. So it's a very, very important asset to have, and not only an economic asset, but also helps to improve your standard of living and your quality of life. And we have been heavily focused on this, and this is why we have been helping our applicants after they've received their house lots, helping them to build their homes, putting them in touch with the banks, helping them to acquire a mortgage, helping them to get cheaper financing for them to construct their own homes, putting them in touch with contractors who can construct their homes for them. And we ourselves have been entering into public private partnerships with developers to construct homes. And we have been overlooking that process to ensure that there is quality in the construction, so that people get value for money and they can get into a home of their own very quickly. So it's a very comprehensive housing program that we have, that goes far beyond mere allocation of land.
Okay, can you walk us through the standards that you apply to award these house lots and housing as well? The
So,
minimum standards that you apply in the allocation of these.
well, you have to be to apply for a house lot. You have to be Guyanese. You have to have attained the age of 21 years, and you cannot be the owner of any land, whether acquired publicly or privately. But it is the access to land is a constitutional right. Access to affordable housing is a constitutional right for Guyanese, and there's no high criteria, there's no high standard, there's no means test. There is no political affiliation that you have to be able to receive a house lot. As long as you put in that application, you're 21 years of age, we will accept that application. And when we are ready for you, we will get in touch with you, and you come into the ministry and you receive your house lot at a very heavily subsidized cost. And you can go on to improve your house lot, or build your home, and we are there to support you through that entire process. You know, our allocation exercises is conducted in the full view of the public and of the press. Everyone can see the faces of all of our beneficiaries. And and in the faces, I mean, they can see ethnicity, they can see people of different religion. There is no means test. There is no qualification that you have to have, well, I supported this party or that party. Everybody is entitled. We have the press there all day. They can ask any question that they want. When we make our slots available, we announce how many are available, and then we invite the people to come and to receive their house slots. And you see the faces of all races, and they're receiving in an open, transparent, fully accountable to the press and to the public.
Thank you, Minister. Now I pass you on to Professor Budu with your questions or clarification.
Minister, can you tell us what the process is involved in getting a house lot?
You can apply very simply. You can apply online. So when we took office, one of the first things we revamped and we rehabilitated was the online application process. So, and that was obviously to ensure that we bring the ministry into the technological age, but also it was during COVID, and we didn't want, it was the height of the pandemic, and we didn't want to have a lot of people coming into the ministry, so we ensured that they can apply online. Um, but once you fill out that application, it's a simple application form, and there's some documents that we request from you, like your ID card, your TIN certificate, and so on. Basic information, and you submit that application, whether online or in person, and there is an interview that you attend so that we can determine what type of house lot you are eligible for based on your income. And when we are ready for you, we will get in touch with you, and you are called for your allocation. It's a very simple process. There's nothing complicated with applying for a house lot at the Ministry of Housing. I think now is something that it's very celebrated around young people, because every day young people approach me, even sometimes those who have not reached the age of 21, and they're so excited to apply for a house lot. And once they reach 21 years of age, it's a celebration for them that they can submit that application, and they feel very accomplished. And they say to me that we know that we've just applied, but we have confidence that the PPPC government will deliver like it has been delivering, and they look forward very much for the day when they can own their own piece of land.
Well, what's the average time from application to awarding a house lot?
I'm not going to give you any false hopes. If you apply today, it's going to take a while, because we have said very openly that we have a backlog of 70,000 that has now increased tremendously by 21,000. But we are working as fast as possible to be able to address that backlog of applications. But we have a duty and a responsibility to those who are waiting in the system for a long time. There's some people waiting 5 years. There's some people who are waiting longer than that, 10 years, and for various reasons. So it is important for us to be able to find those people and to be able to treat them with priority in our allocation process. But by the end of 2025, when we would have satisfied our target of 50,000, that backlog would be tremendously reduced. And it is our hope that, at least certainly, it is a personal ambition of mine that by the time I leave the housing sector, I would love to see applications being more current, and people not having to wait a very long time to receive their house lots.
Mm-hmm. Well, it appears that there's more demand than lots that are available. So, and you have a long backlog. And you said that you're working as fast as possible to address it. What does that mean? I mean, you're trying to get more land, more infrastructure being built. What does that working very fast means?
All of these activities go on simultaneously
Mm-hmm.
as we are acquiring lands for allocation in 20. We're not going to wait to acquire land in 2023 when we get to 2023. This is an ongoing process. We are trying to acquire land to satisfy 50,000 house lots.
Mm-hmm.
So that is ongoing. Um, at the same time, we are doing infrastructure work for the allocations that we have already made. So that is ongoing as well. So all of these processes are ongoing. We have a target of 10,000 annually. So we have to ensure that we have the plans. Once you have identified a portion of land, we then have to acquire the ownership. We then have to develop the design for the area. We have to register the plans for the area at Lands and Survey. We have to register the plan. We have to uh, make the house lots available. We have to go through the allocation process. So it's a lot of moving parts, but these are all happening at the same time. There's no straight line to get there. It's all hands on deck and all of these activities going on simultaneously.
Yeah, you said there is no means test to get a house lot. Is there a time limit from when a person is awarded a house lot for them to build a house?
We try to encourage people to build within the first year of acquiring their house lot, and I believe it's a clause in their agreement of sale. But that depends on also ensuring that we live up to our part of the agreement too, which is ensuring that people have access to their house lots. So that is why we have to catch up. We have to catch up with that. I said at the beginning of the program, when we took office, the APNU AFC left over 2,000 people with a letter in their hand just saying that you have an allocation in this housing scheme. But there was no infrastructure there in the housing scheme. There was not even an access to the housing scheme. So we had to put the money in the budget, pass that budget, and then do the infrastructure works in those schemes to be able to give access and for those 2,000 people, plus the ones that we made allocations for to be able to access their house lots.
Mm-hmm. Well, Minister, getting a lot and eventually building a house is a credit to the current government. But servicing the mortgage and maintenance, etc., are important for home ownership and community as a whole. Are there homeowners association in these areas where house lots are distributed to ensure that these areas do not become shanty towns? Because I've visited places in the world where people are given house lots, the government helped them build houses, and within a few years they become shanty towns. I don't want to
Homeowners,
name the countries.
homeowners,
In this place.
homeowners association
Hmm.
is for private development,
Hmm.
is for within private housing schemes.
Hmm.
Government of Guyana housing schemes are heavily subsidized. Within every housing scheme, we make lots available for high income earners, for middle income earners, for moderate income earners, for low income earners, and they all coexist in one housing scheme. We do not separate our housing schemes. We don't put up walls. We don't have gated communities that the government of Guyana create. Our people have to. We believe in breaking down walls, not putting up walls. We are trying to build one Guyana, and in building one Guyana, we make services of the government available and accessible to all Guyanese, regardless of your income, regardless of your race, your religion, your political affiliation. We want to build communities where people of all races, of all religion, of all ethnicity can coexist in a housing scheme. And this has been the model since 1992, when the housing program was first started under Dr. Chetty Jagan. This has been the model. We have not developed housing schemes where only the rich live or where only the poor live. We believe in raising the standard of living and the quality of life of all Guyanese. And so we allocate house lots of all of these income brackets within a single scheme, and we ensure that we develop that scheme with all of the necessary infrastructure, access to water, access to electricity. We leave recreational spaces. We build schools in large housing schemes. We leave areas for commercial development. We leave areas for industrial development so people can have access to those services, so people can even find jobs in those areas. And all of the investment in the housing sector also contributes to growth in the construction sector, creating thousands of jobs and contributing tremendously to the economy of Guyana.
Minister, you said that this house lots are available to any Guyanese. Does that include Guyanese in the diaspora? And if so, how can Guyanese in the diaspora get a house lot?
So Guyanese in the diaspora can are entitled, like I said, if they reach if they satisfy the same criteria. Of course, obviously Guyanese,
Mhm.
21 years of age, and also cannot be the owner of land previously, and that includes publicly or privately. So, and of course, you have to return to Guyana. You can't have a house lot in Guyana and living overseas. The idea is for the diaspora and for Guyanese overseas to come home and to occupy and to utilize to the fullest their house lot. So yes, it is accessible to Guyanese living overseas, but we encourage them to come home to be able to
All right,
take up residence in Guyana.
Minister, I want to take it out the housing schemes that you're developing in Guyana. Can you tell our listeners how many housing schemes you have currently and how families are being selected to occupy houses within these housing schemes?
We have over 22 housing schemes that we are working on simultaneously across all of the coastal regions, um, including Region 10 and so on. There is no the only selection process is that you have to have an application that comes from our system, that comes from that where you have been waiting a long time, that comes from the backlog. There's no sophisticated process um, to select applicants or to select beneficiaries in our system. We have a land management system, and we allow that system to work, and we can pull applications from that system. I have encouraged people consistently to come into the Ministry of Housing to update their applications, because one of the problems that we have every allocation cycle is getting in touch with people. Sometimes people move, sometimes people change their phone numbers, and it's difficult for us to get in touch with them when we have an allocation available for them. And then they lose out on that opportunity. And that is how time goes by in many of the cases, us being unable to reach them. So it's important for people to come into to the ministry, those who have old applications, 5 years and older, to come in and to update their application so we can have updated contact information. So once we announce allocations, we can get in touch with them for them to come in.
But how do you avoid allegations of bias in the allocation of houses in these housing schemes?
Right.
What
Well,
measures do you take to?
I think I addressed that earlier when I said, because I know that there has been that accusation, but it is completely without merit because we on our application form, there is no box that you have to tick regarding your ethnicity or your religion or your political affiliation. We don't track that information because that information is not pertinent. So that allegation is without merit. And at every single house lot allocation, our flagship Dream Realized allocation exercise, it is a very public event. We announce how many house lots we are allocating. We invite the media there. They stay there throughout the exercise with their cameras roving around all day. And they can talk to anybody, they can interview anyone, and you see the faces of Guyanese of all races. So that is how I would defend that because I cannot come on the program and say we have allocated so many Afro Guyanese or so many Indo Guyanese. That is not a test. We do not require that information because that is not applicable. That is not a requirement for receiving a house lot. So there is no better test, in my opinion, than in the full view of the public, where we are open to scrutiny, where every single Guyanese can see their fellow Guyanese brothers and sisters of all races receiving house lots.
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked that question, as you rightly said, there's a lot of people in the opposition side who are claiming discrimination, the allocation of houses, etc. But I want to move on to the other question of building code. I don't know when last the building code has been updated in Guyana, but that should be updated. And to what extent? I know you touched upon this briefly before, but are the buildings that are being constructed conforming with the existing building code? And do you consider the existing building code as adequate at this time, or they need to be updated, revised, get new rules, etc.?
So within our housing schemes, of course, we have our building codes. We ensure that there is enough setback boundaries and so on. We have our surveyors who are always on ground to ensure that people occupy correctly. Then we ensure that people build according to the code for that area. So a lot of these areas too have NDCs who help with monitoring and enforcement of building codes. So there may be a need for a revision of building codes in the city of Georgetown and across NDCs for modern construction, the construction of modern buildings and buildings for commercial purposes and so on. But the building codes for houses are very simple, and we try to ensure that people conform to those building codes. In communities where we are constructing houses through our public-private partnerships, we have our evaluators who are and our engineers who are always on ground to ensure that after every phase of construction that they go there to ensure that the quality is maintained and that the building codes are being adhered to. And of course, not only us, but many of the banks have their own evaluators who are there as well during the construction process because a lot of this is financed by the banks. So I see, yes, they need, especially in Georgetown, for updating of the building codes. And I believe that there is an exercise that is ongoing in that regard. But we also plan to publish from the Ministry of Housing some updated building codes and guidelines really on how to build and what is the appropriate setback boundary and what height the drain should be, so that we can prevent things like flooding and so on in housing schemes because We have sometimes people who build their drains higher than their neighbor, and then the water can't run off. So we have to do more work in that regard, but it's something that we have recognized and we have been working to correct.
All right, just by a quick diversion, can you please give us a brief update on your plan for potable water throughout the country?
So when we took office in 2020, the state of affairs we found the water sector in was, um, it was a poor conditions. GWI was in trouble with their financing. The company was bankrupt. They had a lot of outstanding debts to suppliers. We had to ensure that there was efficient management of that company. And then in terms of delivery of potable water, 53% of all of the water was treated water. And so we quickly devised a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan for the Guyana Water Inc. 2021 to 2025, where we plan to improve access to potable water from that 53% to 100% by 2025. And we similarly, in terms of access to water, first time access, especially in the hinterland, which when we took office was 4 to 6%. So 4 to 6% of the hinterland received had access to water. From the time we from 2020 to now, we have already improved that 4 to 6% in the hinterland, and that has moved to 63%. So in that short time, less under 2 years, we have already moved the needle from 4 to 6% to 63%. And by the time we finish our program for 2022, we will increase it even further to 73% access in the hinterland. And on the coastland, the aim is the bigger goal is not first time access, because about 98% of people on the coastland have access to water, but is the treated water coverage that we had to increase, or that we have to increase by 100% by 2025. And we have all of the plans and the areas we have already, um, we've already identified the areas in which there is a gap where we have to put the water treatment plant. And for this year alone, 2022 alone, we plan to go out to tender for 10 new water treatment plants, which will see tens of thousands of Guyanese being able to access treated water or potable water for the first time. So that is ongoing as well. Of course, upgrading our water infrastructure is an ongoing process, ensuring that we improve and upgrade all of our distribution networks, and then we have to expand those distribution networks to cater for our housing needs, because with 50,000 new allocations between from 2020 to the time we get to 2025, we also have to improve the delivery of water and potable water within our housing schemes. So the Ministry of Housing and Water, the two agencies are working very closely to ensure that we are on par and in sync with each other.
Okay, I know you have a big project coming up, the housing exhibition. So if you can please tell us about the scope of that, what you intend the,
So
to
we
get out
are
of it. Go ahead.
we are extremely excited about International Building Expo 2022. From the time we came to office, we wanted to reintroduce the Building Expo, because that was not continued under the previous administration. And it was such a good initiative that was started by President Ali when he was housing minister, giving people the opportunity to come out and to be able to see what is taking place in the housing sector, to be able to come out and witness firsthand some of the model homes so that they can make better informed decisions when they choose to invest in a home. This year, the Housing Expo is even bigger. It's International Building Expo. We have over 20, I think about 25 international companies that are participating in the expo. We have over 300 companies that will be on exhibition, local companies, and that ranges over many sectors. We have, of course, the construction sector, we have the banking sector, we have the manufacturing sector, um, and the insurance companies, and a whole host of other local products and services that are available. Um, Additionally, we have on display and on the model houses that the Ministry of Housing is building in our housing schemes. So potential beneficiaries can have the opportunity to walk through those houses, to be able to get a feel of the space, to see the quality of the work that we are doing, and they can choose there with their families. They can make decisions on the spot and sign up for a home. There are other companies that are constructing homes there as well, so they have a wider variety. They have more choices that they more options to choose from, and affordable options. We have, for the first time in the Caribbean, a company that is putting on exposition their 3D machine. This is the 3D printer, which will demonstrate the future of construction. So it over the 3 days at the expo, they will put on display for the visiting public how the machine works and how it can actually print a life-size home. So that will help tremendously in accelerating construction in the housing sector. So the technology is fascinating, and I think a lot of Guyanese are excited to go and witness that. But outside of the housing sector as well, we are also putting on exposition the future of Guyana, the architectural future of Guyana. So we have when people come in, there's going to be a beautiful tunnel there for them to go through and to see some of the projects that will be implemented in the future in Guyana. So they'll have a first-hand look at what Guyana's architectural future will be like 5 years, 10 years from now, giving them that experience. And it's a family event that people can come out with their kids, and we have a play zone, an area for the children where the children can go and enjoy themselves while their parents look around. More importantly, we have during the expo, we are having our Dream Realized land allocation and title distribution exercise, which will see thousands of house lots being allocated over the 3 days from the 22nd of July to the 24th. So that I know many people are excited for. People have been waiting a long time, and you will see allocations being made over those 3 days. You will also see thousands of titles being distributed during the expo as well. So we are doing two things there at once. We are taking our land allocation exercise to the expo, and we have simultaneously going on the exposition. So you can receive your house lot. You can then walk around and have a look at some of the houses that you can choose from. The banks will be there. You can sit and have a conversation with them. They can pre-qualify you on the spot. You can find out the requirements you need to access a mortgage for you to build that home. There'll be contractors there whom you can sit and have a conversation with, so that you can make the right decision. So we're bringing all of the services in the housing and construction sector under one place. and at the same time giving everyone a unique experience, a family event, creating a family atmosphere for people to come out, see what their country will look like 5, 10 years from now with the investment we are making in the housing and in the construction sector. Having a look at the new highways that we will be building and where we will be building the new highways, where we will be opening up new lands. So it is a very, very exciting expo. I know people are looking forward very much to it, and everyone is invited to the opening ceremony, which will take place on the 22nd of July at 5:30 p.m. at the Guyana National Stadium. So right there in the expo, we're having the opening ceremony. So by the time the official ceremony is over, everyone can go and walk around and have a first-hand look at everything, all of the products and services that will be on display there at the expo.
Thank you very much, Minister. Professor Boodoo?
Yeah, Minister, I have a last question for you. Is there a master plan that the government has that defines where housing are going to be, where you have industrial complex, where the roads, new ones, existing ones, where factories and commercial areas going to be? Is there a plan like that that someone can go on a website and see what's is being planned?
So there is a master plan, of course, because you know PPPC administration does not plan for today. We plan for the future, and that is why I said too in the beginning that when we're looking for land to make available for housing, we're not looking only for what we're going to do in 2022. We promised 50,000 lots in 5 years, so we are pursuing land to satisfy that commitment that we made. In every housing scheme that we develop, we ensure that we design that housing scheme in a sustainable way, and that means providing proper zoning in the housing scheme. So we have areas for industrial purpose, area for commercial purpose, areas for government services, health centers, schools, etc., recreational facilities, uh, green spaces, and then we have a mix in our residential area from low income to high income earner, so that we can truly build an integrated, wholesome, sustainable community. And and this we are trying to do on the coastline, and trying to, when we construct new highways and so on, these plans are not plans that we came up with today. For example, that 4-lane highway that we built since taking office from Mandela to Eccles, President Ali had conceptualized and had the plans for that highway as far back as 2012. So he was working on that plan since then. Unfortunately, he was not able, as housing minister, to implement it. But the moment we took office, we started to implement those plans. And so those are not new plans. Those ideas were there from before, and so we want to expand on that. We want to grow, we want to expand that highway to move from Eccles to go to Diamond, which we have already started. And then we want to go beyond there to open up lands, more lands for housing development. So and this is an ongoing exercise in all of the regions. But it's also an evolving exercise because, like I mentioned before too, we have competing interests. So we have to see where there is land still being used for agriculture, and we have to leave that because people depend on agriculture for their sustenance, and so we have to ensure that the agriculture sector remains vibrant too. So it's a constant need to prioritize and to ensure that each sector is given the right allocation.
No, are these ideas put in a blueprint that one can go on a website and see? For example, I can go on your website at CHNPA and see this develop, see this
So
plan, what you have.
so you can have a look at the plans that we have started to implement, for example. But in terms of the future plans, that is what we are unveiling at the Building Expo, and how our housing schemes will look like, what some of our highways will look like, where they are scheduled to go in the next few years. And of course, you hear the president and the vice president talking about the infrastructural future and the transformation of Guyana. You will have an opportunity to look at these firsthand at the Building Expo.
Tara?
Right. Um, Honorable Minister, we thank you very much. The 1 hour is almost up, and I'll pass you on to our host.
Minister, thank you. A lot of information was shared this evening. Can you go ahead and give us your concluding remarks?
I I want to say thank you very much for having me this evening. It was a pleasure being able to share and update everyone on the plans in the housing and water sector. And we look forward very much to everyone's participation and for everyone to come out at International Building Expo 2022 as we unveil the plans for the future. And of course, all of this is towards building on the initiative of His Excellency's One Guyana initiative, bridging communities, bringing people together. As we transform Guyana's infrastructure, we also have to transform lives, and we also have to improve lives of every single Guyanese, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, regardless of your geographical location. We want to build Guyana by building up our people, and that is our main goal, and that focus we remain steadfast and committed to every single day. Our focus remains on building a one Guyana so that all Guyanese, regardless of where you live, can come home, be a part of this initiative, and be proud of Guyana.
Thank you very much. Tonight, Dr. Tara, we heard a minister that is very knowledgeable about, her ministry, and she spoke brilliantly about the plans for the future and how Guyana will move forward. We heard her speak about plans for over 50,000 house lots promised to the people of Guyana. I heard her say that the government wants to make sure that their word is their honor, and she spoke about low income housing. She spoke about programs that just doesn't give you your lands and just leave you out there. I heard her speak about things that they put in place after you get that land. And I do want to acknowledge many of you, we're looking at your comments, we're reading them. I wish we can go ahead and answer all your questions. Unfortunately, there are 91,000 applications sitting in front of this minister right now, and the entire housing. It's a lot, right? And just be patient, hang in there. It's tough, but please hang in there. Everyone will get their chance. With that said, I want to thank all of you. Please share this information with your friends, your family, anyone that you think will gain knowledge from this program tonight. Please share with them. Until next time, be safe, take care. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Minister.
you.
Good night and be safe.
Same
Thank
to
you,
you.
Professor. And thank you, the host and the technician behind here. Thank you.